I don't know about you, but looking back to middle school and to high school fills me with anxiety. I wasn't the coolest kid in school per se, and even though some of us might look back to those times fondly, most would probably remember a time of rich conflict, personal transformations, and drama that helped us grow into the people we are today. But for some reason, when we sit down and we start writing a script where a character is in middle school or high school, we often assume there has to be a bully.
Hello? Anybody home?
But for writers attempting to showcase realism and something modern with their younger characters, is this approach still relevant? Or have the 2020s paved way for some fresher, cool, unique, conflict-rich angles worth exploring? Hello everyone, my name is Jacob. I'm a former child, now I'm a senior story analyst with Slated. Even though bullying exists in all schools in some form and outside of school as well, it might not be the best approach to rely on the trope in such a way that it's been expressed time and time again in films in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And the vast majority of scripts I read that follow kids in high school or middle school often rely on this bully trope. Of course, there's a lot of stories where featuring this classic bully is good for the story world and is ideal for the film. But when we look at reality, meaning what young children deal with now in the 2020s as their main source of conflict, the cool jocks or the playground bully have sort of become things of a past as modern culture has redefined what young kids find cool and how daily activities are run. The more external world that children and people have access to, it seems the more internal their conflicts become. You've probably heard of a lot of these before, you've probably experienced a lot of these before, but if you're looking for ways to add timeliness to your story that features characters between the age of 3 and 18, then feel free to consider some of these ideas. Now, before we get too specific, I want to stress how helpful it is to just research and learn how children learn and how they think and grow based on their age and their stage of development. And I feel that could help literally any viewer relate to the story because everyone was at one point a child and feels connected to their childhood. We see this clearly in the success of scripts written by some filmmakers like Wes Anderson and Taika Waititi. I highly recommend the article from the blog Alright, titled A Guide to Writing Child Characters Authentically, that breaks down how different child age groups think, behave, and act. So now let's go ahead and take a look at these modern conflicts. The first is social media anxiety, and of course this is something we all struggle with, but when a child is at some of their most intense emotional and mental development stages of their life, this anxiety hits hard. And this prioritization of social media with children and teens is left out of a lot of scripts nowadays, which is strange, because for children between the ages of 8 and 12, on average they spend around 6 hours a day on social media. Now, leaving this out does make some sense because it's really boring to just watch a character on their phone all the time. But when you consider what this dedication leads to in modern days, you might discover a whole arsenal of conflict that could lead to some timely and really intense story beats. A lot of children nowadays struggle with their own personal image in a large part due to social media. This is the main focus of Bo Berman's hit film 8th Grade, but that doesn't mean this conflict has to be the main central focus of the script. It could just be weaved in and out in an interesting way. Simply acknowledging this anxiety in younger characters and this feeling that they're not as good as the people around them is modern enough, as it showcases how nowadays a lot of children's greatest bully and source of harm is themselves. Social media anxiety might also lead to a child's inability to address trauma. Allowing yourself to be sad or frustrated publicly rather than keep up a certain image 24/7 is key to actually addressing life's hardships, including things younger people often deal with such as rejection, heartbreak, or family issues like divorce. But when a child feels the pressure to seem happy and stable and living the best life possible and advertise that all the time, this could stunt their internal growth and lead to a lot of internal conflict boiling up until it's explosive. But of course, as we know, social media doesn't just lead to internal self-bullying, but also cyberbullying. This is something that as adults we're probably very used to, but for a younger character and a younger person, getting hit by some of the most vile assumptions or threats by someone anonymously can really have a lasting effect on them because it's something they're really not used to, nor do they know how to deal with it. We've recently seen this conflict shine in some of the most timely television series and films, including Disconnect and Hulu's Pen 15. So if your story is set in modern times and you have a younger character that's dealing with cyberbullying and confronting a cyberbully, it might feel a little more relevant and timely than this classic bully trope. Now that we've looked at some of these digital day-to-day action-based conflicts, we could zoom out a bit and take a look through this conflict-rich lens by which young people see the world and major social issues. Most of today's youth have grown up in a time of 24-hour news networks and consistent coverage of dreadful occurrences. Through media and very open communication of everything that's happening all the time, young people are introduced to some of the most major prejudices and injustices and larger issues of potential dooms that could potentially spur some existential conflicts pretty quickly. According to a recent study, what's called climate anxiety is on the rise in teenagers, where 57% of respondents claim that their daily life is affected by stress over climate change. So whether it's something being watched on the news or debated in the community or on Nextdoor or on social media, children and teenagers are surprisingly perceptive to the larger issues around them, and in some cases could be as entrenched in these larger social issues as adults.
Whatever, man. I don't care about anything.
Oh, you don't care about the environment? It's kind of f***ed up, man.
The big difference though is especially with younger characters who are not yet fully emotionally or mentally developed, they might have a harder time dealing with these issues in their daily life, leading to even more internal conflict within this external threat. This early onset existential crisis is a really interesting conflict to explore when it comes to younger characters, and maybe a script could come along with a very modern and timely theme that addresses how to deal with this a way forward, which can help not only children but even adults that deal with this sort of conflict, and really prove itself as a relevant, exciting, timely story. But one of the largest socioeconomic conflicts children in the US face in their day-to-day life is vast economic insecurity and poverty. In the US, more than half of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and in 2020, approximately 17.5% of children lived in poverty, which translates roughly to 12.5 million children. Safe to say, economic insecurity is a major issue that affects probably most children in their day-to-day life, and could be a timely and realistic conflict to include in some form within a story. Some might argue that viewers don't like watching characters suffer in this hyper-realistic way, but many recent beautiful films show how ultra-relatable conflicts can be both entertaining and emotionally resonant for viewers, and this could involve characters from a range of backgrounds. For instance, in Lady Bird, Lady Bird not only has to struggle with her personal growth, relationships, and feelings of contrived independence, but she receives even more external pressure from the need to get into college, considerations of applications, distance from home, affordability, and a feeling of unfairness in the acceptance process. In The Florida Project, we get to experience poverty through the unique, innocent, and playful eyes of a child. The story feels all the more relevant and beautiful, while still showcasing the struggles of parents trying to give their kids a decent childhood while being financially insecure. An inability for many people to climb the social ladder due to structural injustices, addiction, and crime is also featured in conflict-rich and moving films like Moonlight. And lastly, with over 2 million children in America experiencing some form of houselessness every year, a young character experiencing houselessness along with all their other coming-of-age conflicts can make for an exciting, timely, and relevant narrative, and has been seen in some great films like Leave No Trace.
We didn't need to be rescued.
Your dad needs to provide you shelter and a place to live.
He did. He does.
So just to wrap up, if you're writing a script that you want to be modern and you're featuring younger characters, and right now you're developing a story that has a bully character trope, sometimes that could totally work, but there are so many opportunities out there to do something a little bit new, fresh, original, and aware of how many children think and behave and react and feel today. I hope you enjoyed that last video, and if you'd like our team at Slated to review your script, you can check out the link in the description, learn all about Slated's patented 3-reader script analysis, and if you like screenwriting or film finance content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, happy writing.